Ori 2 is really damn sad. Good evening. I am Captain Emotionless, and I'd like to present my show, Tearful Reviews, where I review the saddest games, movies, television shows, and all parts of media in between. Today, and for the first video ever, I will be reviewing Ori and the Will of the Wisps, from the perspective of the saddest moments within this riveting story. Ori 1. A visual and auditory excitement for the mind that toys with the whimsical nature of the previous era platformers and the serious dark tone of modern storytelling masterpieces such as God of War and The Last of Us. This seemingly light-hearted fantasy hides the deep and growing sadness of orphanhood, loneliness, separation, abandonment. So, let's start at the beginning. Naru, a bear creature, is walking through the woods one day when she happens across a white being, glowing as if the very light of the forest shines through his body. Naru, bursting with compassion, hugs our little protagonist Ori to her chest, adopting him as her own. One fateful night, the light of the forest, Sain, calls out to Ori with a flash of radiance, and out of fear, Naru rushes him inside. Weeks later, Naru is wandering the woods. Death and weakness have befallen the forest and the very world they live in, as if life itself and light has been destroyed. Walking along, she reaches out for the final orange on the final living tree in the entire forest, but falls to the ground. She limps home, orange in hand, body broken, weak. Ori, fearful, retrieves the lost orange and returns, offering the food to Naru. He is granted no response. He approaches his foster mother and new best friend, pushing and pulling her arm, begging her to get up with squeaks of urgency and pain. Orphaned once more, the game captions. We are alone. No reason to stay, we are told. Ori, downtrodden and rejected by the world, sets out through the forest, strength faltering. He crawls his way to a log, and in the background we see Sain, tree of the forest, the light of the world. God, that intro, it kicks off a 10-hour-long journey. And to get a little less emotional, here's the short summary. Ori, depressed from the death of her mother, friend, Naru, embarks upon a journey to save the forest so that no other children will ever lose their family again. To save the world, he must unlock 3 elemental catalysts, the sources of Sane's power. The forest itself breathes upon these catalysts: water, air, and warmth. This way, Sane will be able to restore the power to the world. On Ori's adventure, he encounters many characters, 2 of which are significant to this review. Gumo, who is originally pessimistic, but eventually assists Ori in unlocking the air catalyst, and Kuro, who is a large owl and the main antagonist of this game. Ori travels throughout the world, unlocking the water, air, and finally the warmth element. During the final act, Ori unlocks this element and is confronted by Kuro. They tussle, but when Ori is wounded and unable to return Sane's light to the tree, Naru returns. Gumo, using the light vessel found earlier, saved her life, and in the moment of truth, Ori's mother has returned. Kuro sees a mother, fearful for her child's life, and is reminded of her own egg. In an act of selfless bravery, Kuro, redeeming herself, grasps Sane in her claws and places it in the world tree. A flash of light, and Kuro is gone. The light of Sane bleeds through her body as she dies. But the egg begins to hatch. And that's how Ori 1 concludes. A mixture of emotions, hope, sadness, pain, all playing together in this masterful first installment in the series. Blue Moon Studios blew us away with their first iteration of this glorious story, and left us on quite the interesting bit of sequel bait, implying that a second game was coming. And come it did. 5 years later, on the exact date, 11th of March this year, the year of the plague, the year of loneliness, Blue Moon rocked our world again with a beautiful follow-up to their original game. Just as Game Informer said, with their 95 scoring on the review, the art, sound design, soaring musical scores, and even the basic game mechanics got an upgrade. Something which barely seemed possible. I mean, the original game was awe-inspiring and beautiful, but the second blew it out of the water. In a year completely full of uncertainty, one thing was for certain: Ori 2 was going to kick ass. But, in the wise words of one of my favorite YouTubers, this isn't just a review of Ori 2. This is a review about how it makes you feel. And boy, does it make you feel. From the very beginning of the game, sadness is a deep theme within this story, just as loneliness and depression was in the last one. Even though hope drives most of Ori's actions, his depression and loneliness from the loss of his family is deeply moving to behold. Because of the empathic nature of human beings, we consider Ori's pain to be our own pain. And this theme of shared emotion does not change in the second game. Starting at the beginning, the intro to Ori 2 begins with Gumo, Ori, and Naru, the 3 main characters from the last game, caring for Kuro's daughter, who prompted Kuro to save the forest in her final dying moments. Orphaned, just as Ori was, Ku knows no family but her friends. As Ku grows, she needs to learn how to fly. Orphaned before birth, this owlet will forever live with the knowledge that her mother sacrificed herself for the safety of the world. Yet, it does provide warmth to my soul to know that she is not alone. As Ori, Naru, and Gumo teach Ku to fly, she gets stronger and stronger. The narrator, who is some otherworldly being, describes that the owlet yearns for the sky, wishing to take flight. She runs off a log towards the great expanse of blue sky and white fluffy clouds. The concept comes to the player. This is her moment of truth. She will fly, and her mother's sacrifice will finally be worth it. But she falls. Looking dejectedly at the ground, she waddles away. God, I feel my heart burn up in sadness. This little child just wanted to accomplish something, prove that her mother's sacrifice was worth it. And yet, she failed. Just as in life, stories aren't always happy. They don't always turn out the way you want them to. In an attempt to rectify this failure, Ori recalls a gift given to him in the previous game. Kuro's feather. Perhaps with a piece of her mother protecting her, Ku could finally master the ability and courage to fly. They attach the mother's feather to the owlet's wing, and triumphant music plays as you soar through the sky for the first time. Damn, the soaring music and beautiful flying score of this entire game is stunning and emotional and deeply beautiful to listen to. Composed by Garth Coker, who is incredible on his own and is best known for his work in both games, is not just composing these, but you might know him for a bit of another score. Yeah, he's composing for Halo Infinite. Not just that, but the entire musical score was played by the Philharmonia Orchestra, which is very famous. They are incredible and world-renowned for their work on video games and other things such as that. And the Pinewood Singers were employed to sing most of the vocals within this game. See, nowadays, a lot of games actually forget that one of the most vital things to a gameplay experience is music and audio design. It doesn't matter what kind of headphones you're wearing, or if you're hearing it off of a shitty TV speaker. If the sound is good, if the music is solid, the game will feel incredible. And feel incredible it does. I mean, one of my favorite tracks is the Luma Pools, which I've got playing right now in the background, and I actually use as my alarm. It has a beautiful transition between singing and humming that evokes a sort of safe feeling within you, and a more high-paced section with rhythmic beating that gets you excited to move and beat the platforming in front of you. You see, Ori 2 strikes a perfect balance, allowing for the player to visualize everything that they see on screen within their imagination, and to show them, not tell them, what they should be feeling. The music within the game simply complements, but often I found myself walking around the world just listening to the tracks in the background. When you've got players listening to your music and playing the game solely for that purpose, you know you've done well. Now, unfortunately, I do have a gripe to get over with before we talk about the story and how it made me feel and the actual purpose of this review. So let's talk about gameplay, because I think it's an important issue, but could have been resolved very easily. You see, Ori 1 and 2 are both Metroidvania-style games. This dates back to Castlevania, the original, well, Metroidvania-style game. It's the concept of granting new abilities to unlock previous areas within the game. Unfortunately, to achieve this goal within Ori 2, they have to downgrade the hell out of your character at the beginning. Playing Ori 1 and jumping right into this game is a bit of a disappointment. See, Ori 1 at the end feels like this. And then Ori 2 feels like this. Understandably, it was a necessary evil to provide the same Metroidvania feel and style of unlockables that made the first game such a joy to play. But playing Ori 2 right after Ori 1 feels like betrayal. Honestly, what happened between games? Did Ori get fat or dumb, or just forget everything he learned from the previous game? Of course, while playing this game, without the first, feels great. I don't recommend it. It's so highly detrimental to the story and continuity that it's unnecessary and just ruins the experience. Luckily, my gripes end here, so let's just dig right into the meat of this story. I think I already said that. I'm repeating myself. Quarantine's really gotten to me, guys. Flying through the air, we are treated with a stunning view that absolutely made my mouth drop. Lightning, thunder, the owlet, and Ori are thrown apart, separated by the violent storm. Ku's beautiful moment of success, and you are the player are like, damn, they're really gonna ruin that? I gotta save my adopted sister. And that's where the game goes, hell yeah, that's what we're gonna do. This concept of storytelling is amazing. It rewards the player for what they actually want. Blue Moon has inspired caring and desire to be with Ku as Ori. And so, why not reward us for that? Give us what we want. Allow us to save the one we love. If my mother was in danger, you bet your ass I'd do everything to save her. Moving forward. The first truly tear-inducing part in this game, which is influential to this review, of course, comes much later. So, if you're playing it on your own, you don't need to worry about crying for a little while at least. There are small scenes like this, and like this, these scenes are sad, but their significance is limited by their length and couldn't make me cry on their own. They might get you, but not me. Back to the truly heart-wrenching bits. This game follows Ori as he attempts to recover Ku and save her from an untimely death in the forest. And the main villain is an owl, just like the last game. You uncover the memory of the forest, and the game describes her backstory. It's so sad. I'll just play it. God damn. Rejection, dead parents, disability. This consistency of the theme of becoming orphaned vastly deepens within the villain's backstory, and even makes her comparable with the main character himself, Ori. Another game this year did a similar thing with The Last of Us 2. Abby and Joel, one protagonist from the first game and one protagonist from the second, are very similar to each other. Now, Abby can be considered as the villain, but if they have similar goals, can they really both be evil? Or can they really both not be? Back to Ori 2. Shriek's backstory really just evokes this anger, this burning passion to fight for her, which is strange, because she's the villain, and she does something pretty awful, so let's talk about that. But now the only thought racing through my mind is that these owls are terrible. They injured this poor orphan child. Deformity makes this all more depressing, as you realize that they ostracized her because she is different. Empathy runs rampant in my mind for this poor bird who has fallen completely into darkness and depression of loneliness. Depression plagues millions daily, and has even affected myself and it's not hard to believe that Shriek is lashing out because of his internal struggle. This backstory is revealed on the heels of the murder of Ku. Whoa, I know. Surprising. I should have started with that, shouldn't I? Our surrogate sister and greatest friend is dead. So let's talk about that. Right before we learn about Shriek's backstory, he crushes Ku under his deformed leg, and Ori is thrown into a pit of darkness, metaphorically and literally, and this even references the pit of depression that Shriek has sunken into. Gushing tears, I manage to retrieve my controller, and the game tells me I have to save her. Again. Ori, our beloved main character, has lost his sister. He is our vessel into this world, and we empathize and we feel his pain. A person he helped raise and who is his best friend is gone. Completely enthralled and kind of emotionally damaged, I pull myself together and decide, I am a soldier today. And then not 30 minutes later, the game hits me with the saddest villain origin story since Prince Zuko and Uncle Iroh. Now the game is nearing its end, but the pain and tears are far from over. Ori attempts and succeeds in saving the final Wisp, a glowing spirit who is crucial to restoring this world to its original state and saving Ku, to rekindle the light of the forest. He is confronted by his dear friend Quolok, who was introduced earlier in this game, but isn't important until this point. He appeared earlier and is similar to, like, a granddad. Your pop-pops. He's a guide and coaches you through your spiritual journey. He's clearly a kind old toad and deeply caring. But in this instance of meeting, he's possessed by an evil monster, and you have to fight him? You beat up Quolok trying to rid his body of the beast and manage to defeat the vile creature, but he dies as a result. Are you fucking kidding me, Blue Moon? What are you trying to do? Actually hurt me permanently? Let's recap. You're separated from your sister and best friend. You finally find her, only to have her be stomped on and murdered by an evil deformed owl. Then, on top of that, you learn that this owl has had a terrible childhood and is just struggling hard with depression and abandonment. Then your teacher and friend gets possessed, and you kill him? But we're not done yet. Then Ori must restore the light of the forest. He has to save Ku. And save Shriek herself. And he almost completes his goal. Oops. Here comes Mrs. Sad backstory, and she wants blood. I fight her begrudgingly for 5 minutes, and finally succeed. I'm triumphant. And then the game has the audacity to make me feel awful. This is when I really start crying. Shriek curls up under the arm of his dead parents for his final breath. All I can think is, damn. What the fuck? And then Ori accepts the light of the forest, and finally turns into a tree, bringing light and life to his home. But his friends are never able to see him again. He's gone forever. How could they do that to me? Blue Moon. How? No hope? No suggestion of a final story? But in the final moments, Ku at least returns to life. As Ori disappears, Ku comes back. I'm left wondering if I'll ever recover from this tragic and gripping tale of Ori and the Will of the Wisps. You see, the theme of depression and abandonment and loneliness and orphanhood, which is continued throughout Ori 1 and 2, is a very topical issue. People throughout the world lose family members, friends, loved ones every day and fall into depression and sadness. It's not surprising that Blue Moon wanted to tell a story about this. And I love that they used the medium of animation and platformers to tell a meaningful story. I can't remember the last time a meaningful story has been told through the platformer medium. They're often reserved for kids' games and lighthearted fun, but this is no kids' game, and no fun is to be had here. It's all about what makes you feel, and how it hurts you, and how, no matter what you do, bad things will happen to good people. And sometimes, those bad things can make those good people bad. That doesn't mean that they're evil or awful. That's what Blue Moon is trying to tell us with the character of Shriek. She can be redeemed, but just as Kuro could not live, Shriek can't either. The people who have suffered from depression will continue to suffer. It's not as if redeeming yourself once with one act, or finally being saved, will actually help you. Another story which deals with redemption is She-Ra and the Princess of Power. Another story which takes children's media and gives it meaning. They confront the concept that it's okay to leave, and sometimes you can't just forgive, and you can't just be accepted again. Abandonment, depression, sadness, loneliness. The world is affected by these every day. Ori 2 is just showing us how much.